You're watching the first episode of our new series, Trapped. This is the story of Yossi Ginsberg. In 1981, Yossi was a young Israeli man living in London who was obsessed with the Amazon rainforest. After reading an article about the uncontacted tribes in the jungle, he felt compelled to find one. So he did something crazy. He quit his job, called up some friends, and told them he was heading to South America. And then he flew to Manaus, Brazil, where the Amazon River is most accessible. Then he hired a local guide named Amarildo and set off into the jungle, which would turn out to be one of the biggest mistakes of his life. After sailing up the river for 3 days, they arrived at their destination, a small village of 200 people. But when Yossi and his team arrived, they were not welcomed with open arms. In fact, the villagers pulled their weapons on them. It turned out that they had arrived during a tribal war. There were 2 rival factions, the peaceful Nukini people and the hostile Kaxinawa people. They fought over land rights and both believed that the other deserved to die. Realizing that he could get killed at any second, Yossi played it cool, smiling and trying to look friendly while keeping his hands up in a non-threatening way. Luckily, one of the villagers recognized Yossi's companion, Amarildo, who helped explain that they weren't there to fight. Slowly but surely, they were able to lower their weapons and introduce themselves, and after a few hours, they were allowed to stay the night. But as soon as it got dark, things started to get scary. All around them there was yelling, screaming, and drum pounding. Then the Kaxinawa people came charging towards them with bows and arrows. This time, though, they weren't firing at the Nukini. They were firing at Yossi and his group. Now in full survival mode, Yossi ran as fast as he could into the jungle, following closely behind his group. They didn't stop running until they reached a clearing where they hid among the trees. There, Yossi sat alone for hours listening to the sound of the angry tribe members surrounding him. Then, thankfully, they finally left. However, that night, the terror continued. In the middle of the night, Yossi was awoken to what sounded like screams from a woman in labor, and then he heard a splash and something moving in the water. He looked around in the darkness and saw a pair of eyes staring back at him. But when he tried to make out what it was, it vanished. And just like that, it was gone. When the sun came up, Yossi found more disturbing signs of the creature that had visited him in the middle of the night. There were footprints, half human, half animal. At this point, Yossi was too scared to move. He couldn't even bring himself to walk over to the river to get fresh water. Instead, he spent the day hiding in the bushes, eating fruit and berries. He wasn't sure if he should try to find the others or run away from the evil spirit in the water. It wasn't until nightfall that he decided to leave. Making his way through the thick bush, he followed the sound of the river, hoping that he'd find the others. Finally, after many hours of walking, he found the place where they had been staying. But it was empty. Yossi called out for his friends, but only silence answered him. He searched for days, desperately looking for his missing friends. But no matter how far he walked, he never found anyone. To make matters worse, he was slowly losing his mind. One evening, he gathered some sticks and made a makeshift raft and paddled himself down the river. He needed help, but the villages he stopped at refused to let him come ashore, and when he called out to them, they only screamed and waved for him to go away. Soon after, he started seeing hallucinations, visions of his dead mother reaching out for him, and by the time he was rescued 17 days later, he weighed less than 100 pounds, completely emaciated. When asked what had happened to him, Yossi explained everything that had occurred, including the mysterious footprints and the creature that haunted him. But nobody believed him. They thought he had simply lost his mind. For Yossi, this would be the end of his story, but it was really only the beginning. Because although Yossi survived, this story actually gets crazier. You see, the real reason why Yossi went to the Amazon was to find a reclusive tribe called the Sentinels. These people are believed to have lived in voluntary isolation for thousands of years, and modern anthropologists are fascinated by them. In fact, between 1923 and 1924, a British explorer named Percy Fawcett ventured into the Brazilian wilderness to find the Sentinels. He returned home with tales of an advanced civilization unlike any he had ever seen before. He described enormous stone structures covered with strange symbols, evidence that the Sentinel people may have had some sort of written language. and geometric patterns that indicated an understanding of advanced mathematics. But when Fawcett went back to show these amazing discoveries to the world, no one believed him. So he set out on a second expedition to prove them wrong. But he and his two sons were never seen again. Some believe that they were killed by the very tribe that Yossi wanted to meet. See, there's one thing about the Sentinel people that's absolutely terrifying. They are extremely violent towards outsiders. Just ask John C. Reed, another man obsessed with the Sentinel people. In 1947, he and his friend Renz Horn were exploring the Amazon when they saw a group of naked people with spears, and then it all happened very quickly. Horn was shot right in the head, dying instantly, and Reed was stabbed over 100 times. Incredibly, he survived and stumbled out of the jungle to tell the world what had happened. But sadly, most people didn't believe him either. And so the legends only grew, further fueling the obsession of men like Yossi Ginsberg. But there's one thing that people don't understand about expeditions to the Amazon. If you go in, you might not come out the same. Just ask Charlie Kaufman. In 1985, he was a successful travel documentarian who set off into the Amazon with his girlfriend Diana and a group of 100 native guides. He wanted to film a documentary about the healing powers of the jungle. However, once they entered the dangerous area where the sentinels lived, Kaufman became increasingly uneasy. The guides refused to go inside the thick bush, warning that it was the domain of the evil spirits. And then strange things started to happen. First, Kaufman lost his girlfriend. Then one day he was bitten by an insect and immediately went blind. And as if that wasn't bad enough, he started to hear voices calling his name. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Eventually, he was forced to abandon the documentary and escape the jungle. Once he returned home, he learned that those who stayed behind had suffered even worse fates. Some went insane. Others were never seen again. And still others came back with horrific wounds, burns, and scars that baffled doctors. This story only deepened the mystery surrounding the sentinels and inspired Kaufman to return. But when he got there, he was warned by the locals to stay away because his blindness was not physical, it was spiritual. He was cursed by the spirits and nothing could save him now. Now, believing that there was nothing left for him to lose, Kaufman agreed to participate in a ritual meant to lift the curse. However, he was terrified. He knew that this was a cult and that they wanted him dead, and his worst fears were confirmed when he was thrown into a pit. The cultists closed in and began stabbing him repeatedly. Then they threw him into a fire and watched as he burned alive. At least that's what he believes happened. Because when he regained consciousness, he woke up in a hospital bed completely naked with no memory of the previous 3 weeks. Everyone acted like nothing had happened. No one said a word about the cult, the burning, or the stabbing. And when Kaufman tried to put the pieces together, he was plagued with flashbacks of intense pain and blood. We may never know what truly happened to Kaufman in the Amazon, but we do know that this was a common experience for many who go there. If you enter the jungle, it will take something from you. But believe it or not, this story gets even scarier. Just ask Paul Rizzoli. In 2014, he was a famous animal expert who was determined to film a live animal attack. He and his crew snuck into a remote part of the jungle and waited. Finally, a huge anaconda emerged from the bushes. It was over 26 feet long and wrapped itself around Rizzoli, crushing him like a soda can. Paul managed to free himself and escape, but not without paying a heavy price. Not only was he traumatized by the event, but he also suffered third-degree burns all over his body, and yet he survived. But not everyone does. Every year, people disappear in the Amazon. Some get lost forever. Others are taken by wild animals. And still others fall victim to the violence of the jungle. There is a reason why so many explorers have gone to the Amazon and never come back. There is something deep within its heart that hungers for human flesh. In 2008, 21-year-old Isabella Santos disappeared on her way home from school. Her mom waited for her for hours and then filed a missing persons report. But as the days passed, it became clear that Isabella was never coming back. She had become another statistic, one of the 200,000 people who vanish in the Amazon every single year. Thanks for watching. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to watch more videos like these, be sure to subscribe.